Talk about the ballot proposals that are coming up in this November's election. Before we begin, I want to thank Riverdale Senior Services for hosting this recording, and of course for BronxNet for filming this and for broadcasting it throughout the entire Bronx. There are very, very important ballot proposals that you're going to see on the back of your ballot this November, or if you vote early, in October. And so tonight we're going to talk a little bit about what these ballot proposals are and how they impact you. So first, we're going to go over land use and zoning, what that is. And then we'll talk a little bit about the problem we are facing in New York City, how we are addressing it, and then, of course, actually go through each of the proposals and what it would mean for you. And as we're going through, I want you to think of two things. You may have gotten this in the mail. Let me cover up. You may have gotten this in the mail. And this goes through all of the ballot initiatives and everything you might see on your ballot. And questions 2, 3, and 4 sound pretty good. They sound really good. We're going to fast track affordable housing. Right? We're going to create new processes to make sure we are fast tracking affordable housing. So I'm going to go through what exactly that means, what it sounds like, but what it means for you. And the question we're going to ask as we go along is just who determines what the future of our communities looks like? Who determines it now? And what it would look like if these proposals pass? So first, we have to ask, what is zoning? It defines what we can use, what we can build in a certain area, whether it's for residential, that's housing, commercial, like offices, or manufacturing. So what could be built, what's use, and how dense it could be. So here in the Northwest Bronx, we have everything from single-family homes to the building we're in right now, which is, I think, 20 stories high. How dense something can be. This is all based on zoning. And there are two ways we can build. We can build it as of right. And what that means is if the developer can build what they want as long as it comports with the zoning regulations. There isn't local oversight. Sometimes a developer will come before the community board, but as long as it's within that limit of whatever zoning says, they can build it just working with a city agency. If the development receives a government subsidy, the unit size, distribution, and affordability, that's all negotiated with HPD. That's the Housing Preservation Development. That's an agency in New York City. So in the case of as-of-right development, who determines the future of our communities? It's going to be the developer and the mayor, or New York City agency underneath the mayor. So this is what as-of-right can look like. In Astoria Point, 21 out of the 55 units are considered by New York City to be affordable. You have to make an income of $104,000 to $228,000 a year to qualify for these. There's some people in the audience laughing. To qualify for these affordable units, and you'll pay $2,900 to $3,500 a month. At 540 Atlantic Avenue, 48 of the 159 units are considered affordable. You could spend $3,400 on a studio, still laughing, or $43.47 a month on a 2-bedroom apartment. And in the Bronx, right here in our home borough, 1525 Bryant Avenue, a building with 12 affordable units. You can live there for $3,050 per month for a 1-bedroom apartment. You don't have to take my word for it, by the way. You can go on Housing Connect and search for this yourself. You will find these. And these are all considered affordable because they are there is public financing. And when it's as of right, who controls the fate of our neighborhoods? That's going to be the developer working with a city agency underneath the mayor. But then there's something else. There's something called the ULURP, the Universal Land Use Review Procedure. And so that's used when developers want to build something that does not comport with zoning, whether it's more dense, or they want to take a manufacturing district and turn it into a residential district. They can change the zoning. But it has to go through a vote of the city council. And there's a process at the bottom. It's city planning, then the community board reviews, borough president, city planning, and then again, ultimately, the city council. And what that means when you have unit distribution, community benefits, the affordability of each of those units, that is very often negotiated because at the end of the day, that developer in the city needs the approval of the city council. And the city council members typically, not always, but typically trust the local member to do that negotiation. And so when we ask who determines the future of our communities, well, when there's a ULURP, right now if there's a rezoning, it's going to be the community and the local council representative. There's a vote, a city council vote. So that's what we have now. It's this balance of building as of right, and then when you want to build something a little bigger or much bigger, a really thorough process to make sure communities are heard. So what does it look like in practice? The Gowanus rezoning happened a few years back. They got 8,000 new units, and it included investments in the infrastructure, $200 million for the NYC developments. And I just looked on Housing Connect. Some of the studios can run anywhere from $784 a month to $2,185 a month, and a two-bedroom, $967 to $2,768 per month. And these are based on income, just like the other ones I mentioned. But they have a wider range of what you could be making to live in these buildings. The Western Rail Yard, part of their negotiations, they got union labor, more green space, and $200 million for the community. And here we just voted on it last month on Broadway and 231st Street. Something that was important to this community was 2- and 3-bedroom apartments, along with affordability and green infrastructure. And we worked hand in hand with a developer to make sure early on we got those for the community. So in this building that's going up, it's a little bigger than the surrounding area, but a majority of those units are 2- and 3-bedrooms. You can make anywhere from $34,000 to $129,000 a year. There's a wide range of incomes that you can be making to live here. And what that means is you can have a 3-bedroom apartment in our community for as little as $527 a month or as much as $2,665 a month. Also, important to this community is parking. So we got parking spaces in the building. And that's what the ULURP allows us to do. It allows us to negotiate and allows your representative to represent all of you. So when you have a ULURP, you have community input. So that's zoning in a nutshell. And there are people with advanced law degrees and who make lots of money, who deal with a lot of zoning stuff, but that's it kind of in a nutshell. Now here's the problem we are facing in New York City. Housing is relatively scarce with a 1.4% vacancy rate. And it's expensive. And so there are different ways to address this. Now, Mayor Adams, these questions came out of his commission. And so I'm referring to these as his commission. And this has really been his focus. And he has, I believe, exclusively identified housing production as the way to increase affordability. And he has exclusively identified top-down zoning changes as the only way to build more housing and make New York City more affordable. I'm going to compare that to the New York City Council. where we've done housing production, and I'm going to go over a few of the other issues we've addressed to increase affordability here in New York City. And I'm starting with housing production because you hear Mayor Adams say it, and you hear all of the mayoral candidates saying it. We need to build more housing. We need to build more housing. In the past 4 years, in this council, we have approved 150,000 new units of housing. But in addition to that, we passed Speaker Adrian Adams' bill, a fair housing framework, which identifies targets for each community district, taking into account things besides number of units, like infrastructure. We've worked with the state to lift the cap on FAR, meaning they could build a little more densely in certain parts of New York City. I had a bill that would pass unanimously that says if you live in a city run Mitchell-Lama and you qualify for SCREE, the city's going to send you that form pre-filled out. So a lot more older adults are going to be able to stay in their homes more affordably. We've done voucher reform, which the mayor vetoed and is fighting. We've expanded right to counsel. We've negotiated for $8 billion in housing-related investments, including infrastructure. We're working on reporting offline apartments because there are apartments that are just sitting there empty, which no one can rent out. Funding for legal services, funding home first down payment assistance to help people with home ownership, comprehensive neighborhood rezonings. We have these all over the city. I'm working on one right now with Councilmember Kevin Riley to really bring in a broad and diverse coalition from throughout the Wakefield community to talk about rezoning White Plains Road. These are just some of the things we've done. Now, there's a lot, right? Now the proposals. And I have to say, if I'm reading this, they all sound really good. Like, let's fast track affordable housing. Like, who would say no to that? But let's talk about each of these questions. So question 2A, BSA zoning for affordable housing. So in this process, the Board of Standards and Appeals could approve rezonings. And the Board of Standards and Appeals is a board wholly appointed by the mayor. The mayor appoints everyone. So this is just a proxy for whatever the mayor wants to do. Now, rezonings receiving public financing for affordable units could qualify for this. And, you know, as was mentioned before, we see what some of those affordable units look like. You could be spending $4,000 a month for an affordable unit, and that's why it's in quotation marks. And not all of the units in the building or the development need to be affordable. And again, it means publicly financed, and it's not based on neighborhood need. Because we know what's affordable here, even in my district, what's affordable in Riverdale may not be affordable in Kingsbridge, may not be affordable in Wakefield or Woodlawn or Norwood or Bedford Park. Get the idea. In this, there is no vote at the city council level. Things that I mentioned before, the affordability, the unit size, number of family-sized units, like 2- and 3-bedroom apartments, green infrastructure, parking, that would all be decided by the BSA. And just to give you context, they say fast track. The ULURP, the actual process of the ULURP is 5 to 7 months. The fast track is like 4 to 6 months. The actual process isn't long. The real process, the thing that takes time, is what happens pre-ULURP, before the ULURP. All those negotiations, that's really what takes time. It's not saving much time. And in the life of a building, you know, I think it's worth an extra month or two to make sure we're getting it right. We're building structures that are going to last generations. It's okay to spend an extra month to get it right. So this is the process where the community board would still be able to review, but then it would go straight to the BSA for 60 to 120 days. And so we asked that question, who determines the future of our community? In this case, it's going to be the mayor and his board, as opposed to all of you. question 2B. This is the second part of question 2. This says MIH, affordable housing fast track. And that sounds really good. We're going to fast track affordable housing. Who's against that? In this process, the City Planning Commission can approve rezonings in the 12 community districts that produce the least housing. And for background, the City Planning Commission is a board of 13 members, 7 of which are selected by the mayor, including the chair. So that's a majority of these members are selected by the mayor. And I put produce in quotation marks because community boards don't produce housing. I think developers do, working with incentives with city agencies and local council members, but ultimately developers are the ones building housing. And this also, it can include market rate housing. There is no vote at the city council level. And interestingly, the way they calculate the 12 community districts that are producing the least housing is based on a growth rate, the number of affordable units being produced over a 5-year period divided by, I think, the total number of units. And so you'll see in this map, which the land use team came up with, this is what they've calculated to be. You'll notice places like Midtown Manhattan, East and West Side, like Lower Manhattan, Upper West Side, are included in not producing enough housing. Now, those are pretty dense neighborhoods, I think. I'm not sure. I've heard the rumor. But what I find interesting is that it's based exclusively on growth rate, and it doesn't take into account things like market conditions, where land might be less or more expensive, where people may want to live, access to transit, right, where in a place like here, like in Riverdale, we have less access to transit than they might in Union Square. Infrastructure, including sewer infrastructure, where we get significant flooding from minor rain events, and existing density. So this process, the community board and the borough president, there would be review, but no veto power. They would present these to the community board, and the City Planning Commission would have 30 to 45 days to approve it. The same question. Who determines the future of our communities? If this passes, it's going to be the City Planning Commission. Now, for the Bronx, there is only one community district that this applies to currently, but we don't know what the future holds, that in 10, 15, 20 years, it could apply to any of the community districts in the Bronx. And so to summarize question 2, a yes vote is going to place the fate of the community in the hands of developers working with the mayor. This can apply to rezonings that include public financing, negating the need for apartments to be affordable for the community or meet the needs of the local community where it's being built. And a no vote ensures that this process of rezoning at the council level stays in place and that the local council member can negotiate on behalf of all of you. And again, I gave you those examples where your local council member is often negotiating for the most affordable units they can. In some places, they're like here, what I care about a lot is the number of bedrooms in the unit. I'm negotiating very, very hard to make sure that exists. Maybe we're negotiating for more senior housing. But you have someone who you've elected who knows the neighborhood in and out, who has your back. Question number 3. This would simplify the review of modified housing. There's a modest housing and infrastructure projects. And this sounds really good. Just building a little more, that should be approved by the CPC. That's what the question says. It creates an ELRP process. So this expedited land use review procedure, the CPC approves moderate rezonings and development. And again, as a reminder, the CPC, the majority, is chosen, selected by the mayor, including the chair. There's no vote at the council level. Now, to put into perspective what modest increases look like, the picture on the left, where you have 1, 2, 3 family homes, could be rezoned in this ELERP process to small apartment buildings. And pretty much all 1 and 2 family home areas are eligible for multifamily buildings, which is R1 through R5. Anyone playing the Zola map game at home, R1 through R5. And then in more dense districts, it's an additional 30% height in neighborhoods of mid-density, R6, 7, and 8. In my district, we have a lot of the R1 through R5. We do have some R6 as well, a decent amount of R6, very little R7. But this would allow for the CPC to approve these, what they call moderate rezonings. And this applies to market rate housing. So even that affordability we all strive for, that we would otherwise negotiate for in a rezoning that takes a vote of the council, it's not required here. Same question, who determines the fate of our communities? If this passes, it would shift that determining factors over to the mayor and his appointees. So a yes vote allows the mayor unilaterally or through his proxies to essentially abolish 1, 2, and 3 family zoning. A yes vote also allows the mayor to unilaterally, through his proxies, increase the size of buildings by 30% everywhere else. And it's for market rate housing, or can be for market rate housing. And a no vote ensures one of the beautiful things I think about our city is you can live in a very, very dense neighborhood, or you can own a single or 2 family home, and it retains that ability to have diversity in housing. And if there is a neighborhood that says, you know what, I don't think we want 2 family homes here, we want to rezone it to get more dense, fine. But it allows the community to retain that voice. That's what a no vote will do. The last question, not the last question on the ballot, but the last question I'm going through today is question number 4. Question number 4 creates what they call an Affordable Housing Appeals Board. Now, normally, these rezonings, as I've mentioned, are done through the City Council. And I've only given you 3 examples, but there are numerous examples where council members work diligently to make sure affordability is part of the negotiations, to make sure local voices are heard. That's what we do in the City Council. What this question would do is it would create an appeals board that can undo those negotiated community benefits. This appeals board is made up of the mayor, the borough president, and the speaker of the City Council. And again, currently it's all of us in this room and your local council member, or whichever council member in the Bronx is negotiating on your behalf. And if this passes, it's not always predictable. The developer may go straight to the mayor and the borough president to negotiate with them. And the truth is, the local concerns, those hyper-local concerns, will be left up to an appeals board. Not all of the members, not all the residents of the Bronx. That means that things like affordability, the unit mix, even labor agreements, like negotiating for union labor or for fair wages for our workers, that is all taken away from the community and could go straight to this appeals board. Again, this shifts more power to the mayor. The local council members have different perspectives and understandings of local concerns. And it doesn't even have to be the applicant who files an appeal. The mayor can file the appeal and undo all the hard work that you and your local council member have done together to get benefits for your community and create the type of housing that your community deserves. And there isn't a public hearing, no public hearing. So it's the same question. Who determines the fate of the communities? Under this plan, it is shifted more, again, towards the mayor. A yes vote negates the negotiating power of the local community and council member, and it can negate any community benefits like the level of affordability, green infrastructure, union labor, unit size, you name it. And the no vote ensures that the benefits agreed to by the developer and the local community are adhered to. And that's what a lot of good development is. It's the developer working with the local council member. The no vote ensures that affordability, community benefits, unit size, other elements important to the community are part of the negotiations. So those are the three questions, 2, 3, and 4. But in short, it boils down to this. A yes vote shifts the authority from the community and the council to the mayor and his or her designees. It leaves that affordability up to the mayor and to bureaucrats. And, you know, we've seen houses and units listed as affordable, and they just aren't. It allows developers and the mayor to decide the density and the feel of a neighborhood. And as I said, I think one of the great things is we can have high and low density neighborhoods and mid-density neighborhoods in the same city, and I just think that's great. And it allows the developer and the mayor to forego local needs. Now, a no vote, it retains the authority for big community changes and rezonings with the community and the council. The community and the council, as was mentioned, we fight for affordability. And we still build units. We still build the housing we need, but we do it with the communities in mind. It allows for a variety of housing types in New York City, and it ensures the local needs are met during the rezoning process. And so these are important dates. I think this is the last slide. These are important dates. You could vote early starting October 25th through November 2nd. November 4th is Election Day, and of course, if you vote by mail or vote absentee, you may have actually already received your ballot. Those have to be in by November 4th, or postmarked or dropped off by November 4th. If you want a little more information, you can go to whatsonmyballot.nyc, and you can find your poll site at nycvotes.org. Did we have questions? Okay. We have a few questions. We have 1 or 2 questions. Thank you. So one of the questions is, what power does the community board have to reject proposals or modify or support proposals? Now, this is important. The community board's role is advisory. None of these proposals they'll still advise. But the difference is, I as a council member or your local council member, the community board members are our neighbors. And we often go to all of the community board meetings, or are at least represented by our staff. So we have an incentive to work with our community boards, to work hand in hand. And we got some great people on our community boards. I respect them. They come from all different backgrounds. Legal backgrounds. If I was on the community board, I was a teacher, and people who just know, boots on the ground, like they know what their neighborhood is. They know the buildings that are going up next door, and their perspective is invaluable. And I value that perspective, and that's why when it comes to rezonings, the local council member and the city council can still retain authority. And I would add, in the council now, one of the questions that always comes up is, did the local community support or reject or not support this rezoning? And that's important to the council. That's one of the reports that we get. So again, their role is advisory, but the local council member is more interested in working with the community board than typically or historically a citywide agency has been. Man, someone has beautiful. Will we run ads for the proposals since the candidates are not? Okay, so the question is, will there be ads for or against these proposals since the candidates are not? So far as I know, I don't think yet the mayoral candidates have taken a position on these proposals. There is a $3 million special interest independent expenditure in favor of these proposals. I don't know what's being done to educate voters like I am doing tonight about what these proposals actually mean in terms of citywide. I know I am going out to every community, and again, I want to thank BronxNet for airing this tonight and for putting it on their YouTube channel because it's important. Voters are armed with knowledge, especially when, if you open the voter guide, man, these things sound great. And we got one last question. Are there zoning laws that you think can apply or work citywide and don't need to be community specific that the mayor can control? Yeah, that is the balance between this as of right development and the ULURP. And, you know, I don't think anyone's saying like the city council needs to vote on every single 4-story building that wants to be built. That's the balance that we have in our city. We've made zoning laws to say different neighborhoods are going to look different. But we also say if you want to really change a neighborhood, if you want to build more, then you got to get some support from the local community. And you think about it like this, like anyone in here, anyone watching, like you move to the Bronx or wherever you are in the city to maybe to raise your family or to retire because you fell in love with the neighborhood. And so that means, I believe, you should have a voice if the neighborhood's going to change drastically. But that, again, that is the balance between these sort of citywide zoning laws that we have where, again, developers do work with the mayoral administration to build as of right. And saying the big changes, if that's going to come, great, let's work together to do it. Well, that's it for the questions. Everyone who's watching tonight, I just want to thank you because this is an incredibly important vote you're going to take in the next election. You are voting on what the future of our city looks like for generations to come. I also want to thank the folks at BronxNet for airing this tonight, and I assume putting it on their YouTube channel. Of course, Riverdale Senior Services for allowing us to record in their space, to everyone who's come to watch, and to Speaker Adrienne Adams, who has a representative here representing her. Thanks, everyone. Have a great night.